Hey, welcome to part 3 of my Leetcode in Typescript. This is the series aka known as Leetcode the Day Keeps the Dentist Away. So we are on part 3 right now, and it is called Longest Substring Without Repeating Characters. If this is your first time here today on my channel, well, first, thank you guys for checking this out. And if you like this type of content, please like this video to let me know and subscribe to stay tuned to other Leetcode questions. It's my goal, although I don't know if I'm going to reach it, to finish all of these 2,356 questions in TypeScript in the most comprehensive way possible. So if you like stuff like this, please, again, like this video to let me know you like this type of stuff, and stay subscribed so that you could stay tuned for future videos. All right, now as always, let's read the question together. Again, this is the longest substring without repeating characters. Given a string S, find the length of the longest substring without repeating characters. Pretty straightforward. So for example, example 1, S is this blob. Now let's just take a look at it, right? We have A, B, C, and A repeats again. So right now, so far, the greatest length is 3. Let's ignore this A by now because that was repeated. And again, B. So we got to start from C. And there's another C. So it's 3 so far. A, B, C, another A, B, C here. And that's pretty much it. So the output is 3 because the greatest length of non-repeating characters was 3. Here's a simple one. B, 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 B. There's only B's. They're all repeating. So it's just 1 because it's just the string, the character B. Here is another one. P, W, W, K, E, W. Let's start. There's 2. Oh, these hit, so we can't use those. WKE, and it seems like either WKE and KEW is the longest, which is 3. So it's pretty straightforward. Here are a couple constraints that they give us. S can be very long. It's either 0 length, in which case our answer would be 0, right? Or it could be like 5 to the 10 to the 4th power, whatever that is, like 50,000, I believe. And S consists of English letters, digits, symbols, and spaces. Now, if you were paying attention, and if this was an interview question, the thing that I would ask right off the bat is, what about like lowercase and uppercase characters? So for example, let me just write here, is A the same thing as capital A? Meaning, if lowercase a and capital case A appear, are we going to reset the counter, or are we going to treat them as separate characters? So that's something I would definitely ask. And unfortunately, it's something that they didn't make clear from these description here. However, I've already went through this question on my own before making this video. And we can safely treat A and capital A, lowercase a and capital case A as different characters. So we don't have to worry about like lowercasing everything to ensure that they don't repeat in a different casing. Just treat them as different characters, and that will make this question a lot simpler. But again, if this was an interview question, that will be something you should definitely be asking. Let's think about how we're going to solve this. Most likely, we're going to we have to iterate through every single character in the string. And we have to somehow keep track of the maximum that we have because the maximum could change, right? Unfortunately, they gave us very bad examples. So for example, for this one, we started out and decided that PW so far is the longest because W repeats, so we could no longer use that. So it was the maximum until this point was 2, but we keep on going and then we get WKE. So the new maximum becomes 3. So we need some type of a variable to keep track of the maximum, which can change over time. And we also need to know if the character we are currently on has been seen before. So for example, this W has been used here, W previously. So we need to somehow keep track of the characters that we are using and to make sure that there are no repeating characters. Another thing to keep track of is once we have found an offending character that repeats, like here, for example, we need to sort of backtrack and start over again, ignoring the offending part. So they didn't really give us good examples. So let me kind of make an example right now. And once I make it, it'll be more clear why my example is better. So let's think about some random set of characters. I'm just going to make this up. We have A, B, C, D, E, and for fun, why don't we add B? And what should we add after that? Let's add A again, and let's add D and F for fun. All right, so we got this random set of characters. Let's think about this, right? So we start out as 4, 5 distinct set. And once we get to this index, this character, we have a repeating character. So we gotta pretty much discard this one. We have to discard this one and also discard this one because anything preceding before the offending character is no longer be able to be used because we have to get consecutive characters, right? So we got to start from this C and C, D, E, B, A. This A is fine now because we discarded the original one, but now we have another offending character. So here is our new max length, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What was the one previously? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I guess it's the same max length. So A, B, C, D, E is 5. And also our new one, C, D, E, B, A is also 5. So those are tied for the maximum, but because we have the D again, we got to discard these now and go E, B, A, D, F. And look at that, there is a new maximum, but they are all 5. So the output of this should be 5. But notice what we did. Once we have gotten to a repeating character, we have to delete the one that was repeated originally and also delete all previous ones too, because we can no longer use them. So that's one thing to keep in mind as we go through this problem. So because we have to kind of backtrack to the offending character and go to the number, the letter after that one, after the offending one, we should also not only keep track of the characters we are using, but we should also keep track of the indices in which the characters exist. So we sort of have like a key value pair where I'm gonna have let the characters that we are encountering be the key, and the value of that will be the index. So already the word object or maps should be flashing in your head. So we could either use the native JavaScript object, which is kind of like this. For example, const object, start out as empty and start filling it up. Or we could use the new ES6 map object, which is something like this. I'm going to decide to use the ES6 map because it is more performant when it comes to adding and removing a lot of elements often, and which is what we're going to be doing here. So because this is Leetcode and we want to optimize our solution as much as possible, I'm going to be going with this map approach. So to recap, there are 2 things that we're going to be tracking of. One is a map that contains all the characters as keys and the indices as values. The other one is the max length, which can change over time. So when I first solve this, I'm going to pretty much solve it with the example that I showed you on the whiteboard. It will not be the most performant one. As always, I will show you a better solution that I've come up with. But let's start out with the original solution that is probably easier to grasp. So let's begin. As I stated, we need to keep track of a map of all the characters. So I'm just going to call this C map, short for character map. And because we're in TypeScript world, we have to start typing things if you want to be proper. So we're going to define a new empty map where the keys are going to be the characters. So they are going to be a string and the values are going to be the index. So indexes are numbers. And we're just going to start out with an empty map. Also, we need to keep track of the max length, which I'm just going to call max for short. And because it could change over time, we're not going to be using const here, but we're going to be using let. And we will instantiate it with 0. And keep in mind that 0 is a valid answer if this string was an empty string, like it states here. So as we discussed, we're going to be iterating through the string. I'm going to use a traditional for loop where let I is equal to 0, I is greater than s.length, I++. Reason why I'm using a for loop instead of a for of loop is because I also want the indices. And straight off the bat, I always like to grab the current element in question. So in our case, it will be const c, short for character, is going to be s, the string s at index I that we're in. Now we have to consider the case if there is a matching string, because whenever you do these type of problems, you always have to, you can't assume that you're at the beginning. You got to assume, you got to write this as if you're in the middle somewhere of this loop. But I'm just going to leave a comment for that for now. So I'm just going to say to do this, figure out what to do when there is a repeating character. So let's just ignore that. Let's just pretend we have already taken care of this scenario. What would we usually have to do if we were going through this for loop? We have right now an empty map, and we just have to populate this, assuming there was no conflict, which we were going to handle here anyways later. So how we fill that up is cmap set is how you set new key value pairs. The first argument is the key, in which case ours is the character, and the second argument is the value of this map, which in our case is the index. So assuming this to-do has been done, this should work right here. Now let's take care of the to-do. So I'm going to erase this to-do for now. And what is our condition here? What is a special case that will trigger this condition is if the character that we are on right now already exists in the cmap. So how do we check for that? We do if cmap has is a method of a JavaScript map. If it has a character, it will look through the keys and check to see if this key value pair exists or not, or rather this key exists or not. And this has a O1 lookup time, so it's very performant. So it's much better than using something like an array. So what do we want to do if cmap has the character C? We want to first grab the length of our string that we are on right now, the substring that we are on right now, and compare that with our max to see if it's greater. So how do we determine up until the C, so not including this character C that we're on, not including this current index that we are on, how do we determine the length of the character that exists in the map? We get the length of it by getting the size of this map. How many key value pairs exist in this map? So let's do this. If cmap, and to get the size of it, you just call size.size is greater than max, then we want to do something special. Specifically, what do we want to do? Set the new max equal to cmap size. Now, this took 3 lines here. There's an easier way to do this. Instead, we're going to be using the map.max property. We're just going to say that max is equal to map.max. Find the max of either max, the previous max, or the cmap size, a potentially new max. Now that we have set the max, what we have to do is kind of backtrack to the offending index, erase not only that one, but every single else that was in it. But I'm just going to keep this very simple and just from the offending index. So for example, here we have CBAC. A was the offending index when we got to this A. I'm just going to go back to this and let my I go back to B, so that we could start iterating over from B again. So the way that I am going to do that is I'm going to set my new index, this I here that we're iterating over, to cmap get C, which will give me the value of the index of C, the offending C that was there. And I'm just going to add 1. Because, for example, for this one, once we got to A, I want to go back to where the offending index was and just go to the next index, like here. Now, because we are kind of changing I on the for loop, we essentially have a new C, right? Our new C now should be B, because we went back to A, the offending A, and go back to the next one. So we have to set C to our new index, which is S at I. This is going to complain to us, although Leetcode is not complaining, but it should, because we use a const here and you can't reassign a value to a const. So I'm going to convert this to a let. And then I'm just going to clear my map. So let's think about what happened. I had 3 characters in my map so far for this one because none of these were repeating. Once I got to this A, oh, look at that. There was an A here. So this becomes true. We go in this for loop. We first get a new max potentially. So our previous max was at 0. So we do now the size is 3. Get the max of 3 or 0, which obviously becomes 3. So this max now becomes 3. We set our index, which was currently here, to the offending index, which is 0, and we just add 1 to go to this spot here. We set C to be B, and we clear the C map. So now our map is empty, and we're essentially going to start over, starting from this index. And if you go out of the for loop, you can see that we're just setting the character B at index 1. So this is not very performant because we're essentially erasing everything and starting over again. But whatever, it should get the job done. And my question to you guys is, after the for loop is over, can we just return that max? And the answer to this is no, because if we went to the for loop and the last one never hit this one, we didn't, the map that's contained within our loop, the key value pair that's contained within our map might not have had a chance to compare it with the previous max. So before we do this, or rather I could just put it right here, we have to do map.max of our current C map size or the previous max. So this is a pretty unperformant solution to this question. Let's see if it goes through the test cases, and it is a set in. Now let's cross our fingers and click submit, and we have succeeded. So it is not very fast. It took us 524 milliseconds, which is pretty dang slow. So let's try to optimize this, and let's think about why this is not so performant and how we can improve it. So I'm back on my whiteboard here, and let's go back to, let's make up my so-called better example. Like this. I didn't mean to spell this at the end, whatever. Okay, so what the problem with our current solution is we go through, start filling up the map. So right now, up until here, we have a map of size 5 because none of these were repeating. And then once we go here, we go back to the offending one, we go to the next index, and we're gonna start over from here. And we just clear all this out. But then it's kind of a waste, right? Because starting from here, we're going back, we're letting our eye go back to here and iterate and fill up the map again. Oh, why couldn't we just scratch out all the characters that was starting from the offending index and previously, and just continue where we were? So instead of clearing everything out and starting over from this C when we were here before, wouldn't it be just better if we just stayed here, get rid of the offending one and anything that comes before it, and just continue our list as is? That way, it's truly an O to the N operation because we're not like jumping back and forth. We're not backtracking on this string. So how will we do that? What we have to do is, instead of clearing the whole list and going back, we're not gonna go back this time. We're just gonna get the offending index and clear that one, and also clear any previous index that may exist. So the question is, how can we do this? We can technically, so for example, in our map, we had like A is 0, B is 1, C is 2, D is, I'm just gonna not write the colons, E, this is 3, or like this. So we found this one. This one's pretty easy to find. Get rid of that one. And you see this one? We gotta get rid of all indices that is less than this one. So 0 is less than 1. So we get rid of that one. What is the way to do this? We could technically look for the values of all indexes less than this one, but that's not very performant because maps are performing in lookups of the keys, but not necessarily the values. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep another set of map that is the opposite of this. So for example, 0 is A, 1 is B, 2 is C, 3 is D, and so on. And this way, once I have found the offending index, which is this one, I could just go lower my key value, which goes to 0, and look for that one, which is an O to the 1 operation, and get rid of that one too. So this is how I'm going to solve it, which will allow us to truly solve this in an O to the N fashion. Now let's try to solve it in that solution. So let me go back to the description here. I'm just going to work starting from here. As I stated in my whiteboard, I'm going to have a new map, and I'm just going to call that the I map, because it's just going to, the keys will be the index this time. Now, this is a trade-off, right? Because we are trading performance. We are trading size, memory for performance. So we actually have a greater memory here because we are keeping track of 2 maps, but those are the trade-offs that you have to consider. But usually in today's world, memory is not really an issue. It's more of the performance. So this stays the same. And the only thing that's going to change from my solution here is at the end, here we'll do to do fix later. At the end here, not only are we setting the C map, but we're also setting the I map. Like so. So we're just gonna, let's just get rid of this, although the max stays the same. After we have set the max, before we were backtracking our I to the offending one and starting over again. We're not gonna do that this time. Instead, we're just going to get rid of the key value pairs starting from the offending index and going all the way down until there is no longer lower indices in the maps. So let's find the offending index. And I'm gonna just call the offending index J. Let J is, and how do we find the offending index? It's pretty much what the value of C map was at C. So it's C map, get the value at J. Or not J, I'm sorry, C. So that will give us the offending index. We want to get rid of that one, but also get rid of it in our I map and decrement our J and keep on erasing everything until no more lower indices exist. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a while loop here. While, and let's just do it like this. While I map has J. As long as I map has J, at the end, we're going to be decrementing J. Or while the I map has J, we're going to erase it both from the I map and the C map. So I map, how you delete a key value pair is just delete keyword, delete method, I mean. I map and I map, it has the keys of indices, so we're just going to remove it at J. Now, how do we remove it from C map? Now, we have a bit of a problem because if we delete it first, we don't know the value afterwards. So how about we delete the C map first? So I'm going to do C map delete, and what is the character at index J? It's just I map get at J. That will give us the value because C map and I map are flip-flops of each other. So get the value at the I map, that will give us the character, delete it at C map first, and then delete it at I map, and then we're just going to decrement. So this will get rid of all the key value pairs that starts from the offending key value pair and all previous ones until I map no longer has the index that we are decrementing. So this solution should be fixed now. Everything else stays the same here. And we're gonna just return math.max, cmap.size, and max. We could technically also use IMAP here. It doesn't really matter because they're the same size always. They should be. But let's just use cmap for now. And let's run it. So that is successful. Now let's cross our fingers again and hope to God that it is successful this time. And not only successful, but faster than our previous time. And we are much faster than our previous time of 524 milliseconds. We are at 129 milliseconds, which is faster than 75.63% of all TypeScript submissions. So that was my solution to this question called longest substring without repeating characters. If you have a better solution than this, please post it in the comment section below. I would love to check it out. And also, if you guys like this type of content, please stay subscribed so that you could see how I tackle question number 4.